Hello, Salon Sleuth fans. My name is Melissa, and my co host is Leslie. We decided we wanted to share our salon stories. We both have an interest in crime stories and a fascination with the psychic world. So settle in each week as we share another story with you. Who knows, you might even learn something.
Like, I don't read because I fall asleep, but I did not fall asleep. I had to put it down to go to sleep. It's called Boy Missing: The Search for Kyron Horman by Rebecca Morris. It's really good.
Ooh.
I probably did it in 3 hours,
Oh my
because I
gosh.
just couldn't stop. And a lot of it I knew, and there's a lot of I didn't know about the whole case. Do you know anything about all of this? What
Well,
do
I
you
d
know about it?
yeah, so obviously, you and I live in Portland, Oregon, so I think you would have had to have been living under a rock if you don't know the name Kyron Horman if you are from Oregon, and especially, Portland because I mean, I remember the day it happened, I remember the week it happened, I remember it dragging on, and, in light of you and I doing this podcast today about Kyron. And by the way, it is, as you know, but for all of our listeners, the 10th anniversary of his disappearance is tomorrow. So in light of that, I thought I would kind of refresh all of that for myself. And what I remember is, oh my gosh, this thing is solved. Like, oh, they know what happened. They know what's going on and nothing, and still to this day. So I'm going to let you, because you've done the majority of the research and everything, I'm going to let you tell our listeners about this. But I think, we all here in Oregon, like, we feel like this little boy could be, in our family at this point.
Well, and to go with what you said, when you said the name Kyron Horman, everybody knows him here in Oregon, especially. But for me, it goes beyond that. As soon as you say his name, I know exactly what he looks like from all the
Oh yeah.
pictures all over posted. There's an image that you already get right when you say it. And maybe I'm more of a visual person, but that was definitely, it's just so sad, the whole thing. But I do want you to jump in at any time if there's a question or if you want to add something. And the book was written really well. It kinda goes back and forth, so I'm gonna try to keep it in a timeline.
What's the name of the book? Why don't you tell our listeners what the name is?
It's called Boy Missing: The Search of Kyron Horman
Oh, you
by
did tell us.
Rebecca Morris. It had just came out. I think I ordered it off of Amazon. I It took too long to get here. It took, like, 4 days. What happened to Amazon Prime when it was, like, a day?
Really? I
But
would
I
like
did have
that's
to
a whole other
wait
podcast subject.
because I had been talking, to a girl who runs the Kyron Horman Soldier Warriors, or whatever the Facebook page it is. And I had sent her a whole list of different questions that I had, and she's like, just get the book. I think it's just going to be easier. And it probably totally was, because there's so much more information in that book
Uh-huh.
than my little questions that I had sent her. So it definitely filled in. I just had to wait, and I didn't want to wait. I'm very impatient. The other thing I did notice is I'm not very good at storytelling, especially if I have to go back to my notes. So I'm going to try to do my best. You're a really great storyteller, and I can tell a story if I know it really, really well. And I feel like I know this, but there was so much more information that I learned from reading the book that I feel like I might have to go to my notes, and it might sound a little choppy, but that's why.
Well, there's so much to this case too.
It is, and it's so sad because it goes back, like, it didn't just happen, 10 years ago. Everything, started many years ago before that,
Correct.
and it's so I may have to kinda bounce around to kinda get that information out.
And when we first started talking about this, we were like, there's a lot of cases in Oregon. And we had just been discussing the Kyron Horman and then Deborah Cox.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, well, we don't want to do a show yet on Kyron because we want new information. We want something to tell people that they don't already know. Because we feel like everything that's been said, Terry's been on Dr. Phil and Desiree has been on Dr. Phil. And so everybody knows everything, right? Or we feel like they do. So we really wanted new information. So we've been searching and trying to find new information. Now there's not a lot out there, right?
Yeah.
But I did want you to tell listeners that your love of missing persons, and especially this young boy,
Yeah.
it started, and I think it was more like a year ago that you
It was a
started
long
this.
t we went up to the school. It was me and a couple coworkers. We actually drove up there, and at the time, it seemed like it was so far away, and it's really not that far, but it felt like, when you don't it always seems further away when you are going to a new place, and then coming home seems really quick.
Well, and just to kind of give people the lay of the land is, we live in a very suburban area of Portland, and obviously there's the urban area of Portland. But Skyline, where Kyron went missing,
It's
is
rural.
it's rural, and it's this interesting
Yes.
thing. The address is Portland, and a lot of those people work downtown, but it's this very interesting elbow of area that's kind of up top. It's
Yeah.
skyline for a reason. It's up top of the hill that kind of surrounds and tucks around Portland, separating downtown from really the suburbs. So, when we talk about it being far away, it's not really far. It's just windy, and you just kind of have to go up
It's
into
like
the middle of nowhere.
Forest Parkish. It's
Yeah,
like that whole area, and it's sort of like a divider from, like, downtown to Beaverton.
yeah,
Like, I didn't know just on that ridge, if you go down, you're gonna hit Highway 30, which is
yes,
where Hood to Coast runs, right?
yes,
And I was like, "Oh, well, we're really not that far." And if you just take Highway 30, you'll hit downtown Portland. So it's kind of this it's almost like a shortcut for some people to
correct.
get to Beaverton to, Sylvie's Island or,
Yeah.
I had just never been to this area, so I had no footing of where I was, but it's definitely, a different lay of the land than it is here where we live. But I went and I took pictures all over the school and, in the windows and, the parking lot and, it's funny because I had come up with my own theories, and then you read the book, and you're like, "Okay, well, that didn't really fit with what I thought," and honestly, let me just put this out there. I am super terrible with direction. So I also watched Little Boy Lost on the Discovery Channel.
So did I.
Okay, and that was really good, but I don't know if that was the most recent one, was it? Did it say what date that was released on?
Yeah, I think it was the most recent.
Okay. For some reason, I thought it was old after I read the book because there was so much more information. Because it kind of stops after the hour, and I
Yeah.
felt like there was more to it. Um, okay, so as we know, on June 4th at 3:30, Kane. Let's go with who these players are in the game. Kane is the father. Then you've got Terry, who's the stepmother. Desiree's the mother, the biological mother, and her husband is Tony. So those are like the key players in this. And we also have little Kayla at the time was Terry and Kane's daughter, which is Kyron's stepsister.
Other
So we
people
got
do not pronounce it Kayla.
what is it?
I don't remember, but, because I just been listening to a bunch of shows today, and they didn't pronounce it Kayla.
What did they say? Because
One of the gal was
it didn't
calling
sound right, but then when I look at the
y
what
y
it's Kayla.
Kyra, it's something like that. It's not Kayla. But I don't know, I don't remember right off the top of my head, and also one of the people that I was listening to her talk about the case, she kept calling him Kyron, and I'm like, "It's not
Yeah.
Kyron."
Okay, so since we don't really know what her name is, I know her nickname is Kitty.
Oh, cute. Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're just going to refer to the step little sister
she was what,
who
6 months old?
she was 19 months when he
Okay,
went missing.
okay.
Okay. So we're just going to call her Kitty. And okay, so at 3:30, Kane, Terry, and Kitty head down the driveway to the school bus, which let me also put out there when I went to the school, we also found his house. And so I kind of know what they're talking about. There were no trespassing signs at the end of the driveway, and the driveway kind of goes up so you can't see the house, but I kind of figured out where it was. And so they walk down the gravel driveway to the end, and I guess that's where the school bus is. It's kind of a busy little street there, but they walked down there, and he didn't get off the school bus. Kane was like, "Hey, where is he?" And he's like, "He wasn't on the bus." And so he's like, "We'll call the school. Maybe he's still there. Maybe he missed the bus. Who knows?" And he calls, and then the school says that he wasn't there today. And I know that people were asking Kane, "Well, how was Terry reacting during that?" And he's like, "I was so frantic, I just grabbed Kitty and we ran up back to the house to get in the car to go to the school." So nobody really knows how Terry was actually reacting.
Mhm.
Um, if who knows, because he was so in his own world just trying to get to the school.
And by the way,
Yeah.
she's you'll hear this throughout, but she's the prime suspect in everyone's mind, but she's a stone cold liar. I mean, she sat on
Uh,
Dr. Phil, and I can still tell she was lying, but she's a really good faker, so I'm not sure that he would have
I
picked
think
up.
she's just a really good manipulator.
Yeah,
I think she's really good at what she does, and I think she gets what she wants, and sadly, I know somebody just like her that, at the time, you don't even pick up on it, and then after the fact, you can look back and be like, "That's what was happening," and, we're just going to assume at this time she's still innocent,
yeah,
right? We're gonna
yes,
go through this, and then we'll let you guys decide whether you think she's guilty, but we're going to kinda go in that direction. It won't be very hard to come with that on your own. So they get to the school, and the secretary is like, "He's not here, but here's his backpack and his jacket." Did you see that part? Because
yes,
that was a question that I had. Was his backpack there? Was his jacket there? So those 2 things were there. Given it is also June, there's no really need for a jacket, but he had one. And, so they immediately call the next or the emergency contact number,
yes,
which happens to
Desiree.
be Desiree, and she's in Medford, and that's, like, 4 hours from Portland. And so
At
she's like, "What
least, if not 5.
is it?" It's I know it's far. It's,
Like,
almost on the border, isn't it? It's way down there.
well, yeah, I would give myself 5 hours to get there.
They call her because she is the emergency contact. Get this, she was also going to be coming there anyway that night because it was her weekend with the boys. Now, Desiree has Kyron Horman. She also has another son, Quinn. That son was from a previous marriage, but that son also lives in Port or in Beaverton. So the two families, Kane and her other ex-husband, are good friends. And so Kane actually will take the boys and drive, I think, to Eugene, and then she meets them there and drives them the rest of the way back home. That's usually what has happened in the past. She was planning to come to Portland that night anyway. She's just at 4:45 still at work at Lithium Motors, and she gets this call and she immediately like, "I'm out. I'm got to get out of here." She gets the call, she drops everything, she goes straight home. She gets the dogs to the neighbor's house. She has to find her husband. Her husband's at a barbecue for he's a detective with the Medford Police Department,
Mhm,
and, so she has to do a phone break because there's no cell service where he was.
mhm.
So they have to figure out where they're at, who and then whose house that was, call that number, they're on the phone, they have to do an emergency break to get into the phone line, and they're like, "Is this really an emergency?" And they're like, "Yes, go get Tony." Well, Tony's had a few drinks,
Oh, no.
so, he's not able to drive. So another guy, takes Tony home. He jumps in the car, but he's now a passenger. She's frantic, but he's like, it might be a good thing because she just wants to get there. She said she drove in 4 hours, 90 miles the entire time just to get there. Yeah. And that's what the
Yeah,
book
you can't
says.
I was gonna say you can't make that trip that quick, so she was hauling.
She said 90 miles an hour. She was just going. He wasn't, it didn't sound like he was really saying anything. He was just kind of, the whole car ride was probably a little awkward. And she's probably just freaking out. They both thought that when they got there, maybe he had been found by then. I think around Eugene area, they called in and she's like, "Tell me what happened again. Like, what's going on? Like, what happened to Kane?" And he's like, he just wasn't on the bus. And then Terry's saying, "I took him to this science fair." Okay, let's step back. Let's go back a little bit to the science fair.
Yeah.
I should have started this from the beginning, but so on June 3rd was the day before all of this happened. On June 3rd, Terry had dropped off his science project already at the school. It's this big diagram about what is it? The red,
Red-eyed green frog red-eyed tree frog.
right. So there's this huge, thing that he had made. And so they took it to the school the day before. Then that morning, Kane and Kyron have a little like powwow. Hey, good job on that. He's like, he's not able to go, but he wants to show his support. So they have a few moments together. And then Terry, Kitty, and Kyron go off to school. But they borrowed the truck and she never drives the truck. So a white Ford F-250, instead of her red convertible, was it a convertible? It's
It
a cherry red Mustang.
Mustang.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a convertible, but it is a cherry red Mustang. She traded it for the white pickup truck. I don't know why, and it said in the book she never did that. She never drove that truck, but for
Do
whatever reason.
do we know why?
Well, not in the book and nowhere else that I'd seen, but in my notes from a long time ago when I was looking at this, it said something about she was going to bring the project home.
Mm,
But we know that wasn't true because she left it at the school and he took the school bus home.
yeah,
But this could be one of many things that just didn't add up, right?
right.
Okay. So at the school fair, there were like 3 or 400 people at the school and it wasn't monitored. People weren't signing in. There were grandparents and everything. This is a very small school. That seems like a really high number, but maybe everybody made a project in the classroom. And if you have so many different classrooms, it's an elementary school. So then you times it times like 3 or 4 people because grandparents are coming too. So maybe there was that many people.
Well, and
But they got
my
yeah.
kids' at school never did that, but, I at first, I always questioned, like, why did they have it before school? This is so weird, but I think it was, like, that science fair where everybody shows up before school, they see the presentations, and then the kids go off to their class and everybody leaves, and
Right. And
it was, like,
yeah.
400 people.
Yeah, so I think the school opened up at 8 and I think that's when they were there and they go to where the classrooms were and they saw the projects and each
Mhm.
classroom had their own. And and then what happens is school starts and then the classrooms are together in different classrooms and they're going to travel around to see all the projects. And then later that day was also going to be a talent show.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's also a big confusion because Terry had emailed the teacher saying that Kyron had a doctor's appointment on Friday and she just wanted to let her know. And so that day of at the science fair, she's taking a picture of Kyron who is wearing a CSI shirt.
Yeah.
Now, I was kind of like, what the hell? A CSI shirt? Like that was planned. It had to have been. But one of the things that Kyron really liked was forensics, and he liked it
Yeah.
because his stepdad was a detective,
Yep.
and they would watch some of these shows together. And Kyron actually bought that shirt himself a year previously, or sorry, the fall of that school year. They went on a field trip to OMSI, and he bought it at the gift shop. So he bought it himself, and I bet his stepmom was there, but he bought
Mhm.
that shirt, and so I bet she, though, maybe was like, "Hey, you should wear this shirt today." It's a science fair, and science is forensics, and so who knows? Or I'm just making all of that up, but I'm assuming, I'm guessing,
I was
I don't
gonna
know.
say, we're gonna guess that she's innocent.
Yes. So maybe he loved that shirt, and he put the two together that it's science, right? So he
Yeah.
wore that shirt that day. Let's just say that happened. And so, I just feel so bad, and I'm gonna feel even worse if she really didn't do it, okay?
I know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But let's just go with what we know for sure. So she takes a picture of Kyron in front of his project. He also takes a picture of one of his really good friends, Ellie, and Ellie's mom's name is Alice. And she takes a picture of Ellie in front of her project. So I believe they then went downstairs. So the school is like 2 levels, but the staircases themselves, I think they're like my house where it's a split level. So,
Yeah.
like, if you go down a set of stairs, it leads you out the door, or you can keep going downstairs to the downstairs of the building.
Right. Okay.
So, if you leave his classroom, you can go down, like I said, the split level stairs, and then there's another staircase that goes outside, and that will take you all the way down to the track and the playground.
Okay.
But on the opposite of the building is the parking lot.
Okay.
And then in between, in the middle of it, is the half staircase down. You can go out the front of the building or keep going down the stairs, backtracks back down the stairs to the basement. Does this make sense to you?
You've lost me a little bit, but you need to put that
Okay.
image online.
And it is now about 8:45. They're downstairs, and he this is when the picture is taken. I think they can prove or was that right? Was the picture taken downstairs? This is where I'm getting confused. Whenever they took the picture of him with the frog was about 8:45, and I think they've proven that. And
Yeah.
so they are, I don't know, maybe my timeline's up, but at some point, she's leaving the school. It's 8:45. She's downstairs. She has to go up at least a half a set of stairs to get to one of the doors. She says she was on, like, the north side. Okay, in one instance, she says she's at the front of the door. Another instance, she says she's on the north side, and she says they took separate staircases up. And that is probably true because Kyron at some point passed his friend Tanner on the stairs. Did you see
Okay.
that part too?
Mm-mm.
And he didn't see Terry, but maybe either Terry was ahead or behind,
Is
or
this in
maybe on
the
a separate
ID? Is this the ID investigation that you're getting all this info?
well, this could also be from the book.
Okay, I was gonna say, I don't think this was in the
Yeah,
ID info.
so, at some point, he does pass his friend Tanner on the staircase. He does not see Terry.
Okay.
So, as a second grader, I would be like, "Hey, I'm gonna meet you up there," or, whatever. They could have definitely gone on separate staircases. But then again, you have to go up another flight to get to the same floor on the upper level, right?
Right.
So she says that she sees him from where she's standing walk down the hall to his classroom. Okay.
Yeah, which
There's
she
3 or
can't see.
400 people in the building. Are you going to be able to see him all the way from one building to the other side wave at you?
Well, I guess there was some question. I did see that where she said, let me see, Desiree and, what's the dad's name?
Kane?
Kane were mistaken about what room he was actually in. Terry was actually right. They kept thinking he was in last year's room, and it ended up being that she was correct in her room. But I don't think that I think he left. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's where the
Well,
suspicion comes in.
I don't think it actually happened because there's so many people in the building. I don't know if she could physically see somebody with all those people in the building go into a classroom.
They literally interviewed every person.
490 people they
Correct,
interviewed.
correct.
So that's a lot of people. How could you see him? I don't know. That one never stuck with me. The other part that I was questioning is, okay, she also blew the smoke with the teacher with the email, right?
Right.
Hey, here's a doctor's appointment. So the teacher's not actually thinking he's missing. He's
No,
just going to be coming back because she told me about this doctor's appointment.
correct.
Now, Terry claims that the doctor's appointment was for the following Friday.
Yeah.
But why would you email a week and a half ahead of time to tell somebody about a doctor's appointment that's a week in advance? Like, I send it my kids with a note that day,
Yeah.
maybe call in the morning, but I would never do that. That's very
Agreed.
confusing, and I think it was confusing on purpose.
I do too.
Yeah. And she said something else. I have to go back to my notes about what she was like, no, she was confusing it with, something else that she said, but she was like, it had nothing to do with that doctor's appointment. And I'm like, I don't know. That the whole thing's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's a
And
little suspicious.
yeah, so he passed the boy Tanner on the front staircase. That's what it says in the book, the front staircase, which is the one that leads to the front of the school.
Okay.
So was he on the lower half? Was he in the middle? Was he in the top half? Because maybe he saw him, his friend Tanner, and then went out the front door. Like, because in the front door it goes to like that little foyer, like a little, it's almost like a little playground right in front of the school.
Here's
And
the
then right
problem.
yeah,
Here's the problem with that, and Desiree obviously is the mother. She said he would have never left by himself. He was
no.
a very fearful little boy. He couldn't see very well. Without his glasses, he had, like, no visibility, and you can tell that from his pictures, like, it's pretty they're pretty thick. So she says he would have never, like, just wandered off by himself. He had a lot of fear
Right.
about that.
She said he was not an instigator, but he was a joyful follower,
Yeah.
is what he was, quoted as being. And he just sounded like he sounded like it probably a lot of energy, but he also sounded like Terry ran a very tight ship because she wanted color coded cards for the day depending on how well he did. And so they were like red was like the worst card you could get. It was like he was misbehaving. Blue was the next worst one. And then it goes up like yellow and blue and or sorry, green. And unless he got like the top card, like she wanted Kane to discipline him. Now, that was a little
Really?
confusing, right? But it was only Terry. I don't think those cards actually existed for the whole class. I think she wanted that personally for her to judge how he was.
Because we should say she was a teacher.
Okay, she has her so I used to give her a lot more credit. Now and maybe she still has it, but according to this book, um I was always under the impression that she had gone off to school and had the education to become a superintendent. Well, I think what it turns out her dream job would have been a superintendent. However, she couldn't even land a teaching job. She was only able to land 2 substitute teacher jobs.
Oh,
Yeah. So she wasn't even she has her teaching degree, but she was never hired as a full-time teacher. She was only a substitute teacher. So,
okay. And did
um
she have another son as well?
she did, and he was older, and his name what was his name?
And he lived at the house too, right?
For a while, for
Yeah,
a long time, actually.
yeah.
About 6 it sounds like about 6 months before Kyron goes missing, he's sent to go live with her parents. And that's around when things started not going very
Do
well
we
for
know
that
why?
household. Well, okay, so it kinda goes into, a little bit I don't believe it was because she wanted him to leave. I don't believe Kane maybe didn't want him there. I
Okay.
know that she probably covered for him quite a bit, and she hired a landscaper to do some yard work, where I think Kane always thought it was her son that was doing the work
Yes.
because it was so much work. I think she was like, "I'll just pay this guy to do it, and then her son will get the credit for it, and then maybe things will be smoother around the house." So Kane never knew that this landscaper existed. And so I think that's what happened. I don't know exactly what, happened between the families where the son had to go move, but I don't think it was because Terry wanted him to. It sounded like he was going to go live with her parents.
Okay.
I think at that point is where things kind of shifted in the family totally. I think she resented Kyron because she can't even have her own son there at the house, but Kyron can be there, who's just a stepchild. Okay, and let's go back a little bit to when why Kyron is at the house.
Okay, can we stop for a second? Because
Yeah.
I was reading or I was listening to her interview today on Dr. Phil, and she actually says in it that she believes that Chiron was being touched inappropriately because she walked in on him doing some inappropriate things. So she actually feels like he was, she alluded to, maybe he could have left on his own kind of a thing, that he was being mistreated. But when you're sitting here telling me that the other son, which I didn't even know, had been shipped to grandma and grandpa's house kind of not willingly, I make a connection right there.
Exactly. And so I did read that thing about how he was with his little sister. Is that what you're talking about?
No.
First of all, he's 7 years old. If she's saying there's inappropriate stuff going on, he was 7. Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't even know what that is,
right.
if it was anything, right? So, I think she was saying these stories to kind of start a
Muddy the
groundwork.
water. Muddy the water,
She totally was. She
for
was
sure.
making up all these things and all different kinds of variations because according to what she was saying about the doctor's appointment is because she thought he was having many seizures. He would just space out and so she wanted to have him checked out. And so that's why he had this appointment not on the 4th according to her, but on the 11th I think is the next one. But why would you tell your teacher like on Thursday about a Friday appointment the next week? Because she's
Huh.
muddying the water, like, she's just making it really confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Here's my he
so
I
yeah.
know we're gonna keep going on this, but here's my thing to just gnaw on a little bit, is I know she's smart. I know she has several degrees and everything, but is she that smart to have not made a mistake in this whole thing? Is she
No,
either th
she
this
just got really lucky.
I mean, the tr
But,
down to
oh
the
my
truck,
gosh.
and then Dee Dee, her best friend, gets the burner phone. I mean, there is so many layers to this story, and I know you're gonna
Yeah.
keep going in it, that I I I just can't believe she's that smart to have literally they did not find a single piece of evidence around that school either.
Nothing. No, I think she got lucky. I think she's smart. I think she's more manipulative than smart. I think she's got that mind that kind of, thinks outside the box and manipulates people. She can get people to like her, but then at the same time, people think she's weird. They think she's
Yeah,
odd. She's like, but for some reason, I think she can get the attention of boys,
yeah.
men, whatever. I know that they had a fight the night of the 3rd, and, I don't know how bad it was, but she got on the email and emailed one of her friends saying that she's leaving with Kitty
Yep.
and the next day she was going to leave. And was she going to take Kyron too, or was she just taking she's gonna move out
They
that
were gonna get a divorce, and she was leaving the day that Kyron went missing,
now do you remember, did she write that email that morning or that night
the night
after the
before.
fight?
The night
Okay.
before. Yeah.
But her
But the interesting
car
thing is she said
yeah,
they were up till, like, really, really late, like 3 o'clock in the morning fighting.
yeah. I think she probably never went to bed. I think she was, like, fuming and mad, and but I do know I read in the book that her car was found on different rural roads before this happened, right?
Driving
So
around. And
right,
she would say that was to put the baby to sleep because the baby liked to would
be
fall
in the car.
asleep in the
And
car.
I've done that with my kids,
Yeah.
get in the car and drive and do that, but it also kinda sounds like she's looking for areas to me.
Well, again, it's either a horrible, horrible coincidence or she was
Yeah,
looking for a place to dump it.
and the other thing I wanna point out is, the red convertible, people saw that on the side of the road. It was obvious it's a red convertible Mustang. You're gonna see that on those, like, country roads out there, that's gonna be
Right.
obvious. Which also brings me to the point of why she wanted that truck that day, because in that area, people that's what they drive, work trucks are all white.
Did she ever say did Kane ever say what her reasoning was? Oh, it was for the project.
It was for the project, but she never had a home.
Yeah.
I mean, I read that years ago, and I didn't see it in the book. I don't there was no reason in that episode even of why she had traded the car. My one point was, did she do this often? And in the book, it said, no, she did not. So she never took the boat or the big truck out, but you wouldn't even question a white pickup truck on the side of a road in that area because that's what everybody drove. But you would definitely remember a red convertible, a red, I keep saying convertible, but Mustang is what I mean. Um, so I think that's why she took the truck, honestly.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're gonna assume she didn't do it, right, Leslie?
Yeah, she didn't do it. She just took that truck. She had really bad luck or really great luck, however you
We
wanna
do
see
not
it.
have very good poker faces at this point.
No, she's still innocent. So they
She is.
yeah,
She
we've jumped all over the place, and
I know,
hopefully
she's
we covered
innocent
some of
until
that.
proven guilty, right?
Right. There's no proof of anything.
Nope.
Yeah.
At least we
So
we haven't gotten to see it yet.
yeah. I know. Anyway, so they're at the school. It is the police were called. They were there within 3 minutes. And then, not only Multnomah County, now the sheriff department's out there. The superintendent is like sorry, no, I think it's the school principal stayed there all night. She stayed till Desiree got there. She wasn't leaving. She's like, we need to find him. Like, she feels terrible. This happened at her school. Again, a lot of schools now have video cameras and stuff. They had nothing at this is a school. Imagine in the rural road in that one little house on the prairie chapel church.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it is. It's like
It is.
this is like a neighborhood. Everybody knows everybody out there. Like, why would you need a camera? Bob down the street, and Sue's coming down with her, coffee cake, and that's just how
Well,
the how
And
they
this
are.
this changed the way Portland Public Schools and schools in the area do things. I mean, after this happened, there were, like, major changes in school districts where the school would immediately call the family or within a couple hours if the child was not there for school. So, we should say that everybody had seen him at the science fair, but then the teacher marked him absent and they didn't call. And the teacher didn't really think it was a big deal because she knew about this doctor's appointment. Whether she had the right day or the wrong day, she'd been told about this appointment. And I do that as a coach all the time. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I remember, the parent mentioning something that must be tonight. You know. So I
Right, and his backpack's still there. He's coming back after the doctor's appointment, like,
yeah,
everything's fine,
exactly.
and I mean, it was the perfect storm. If this wasn't planned, this is, like, something, like, just worked out really well for somebody,
Correct.
right? Or
Correct.
really terrible for a lot of other people.
Yes.
It was just horrible.
Yeah. And
Um,
so sad. I mean,
yeah, terribly sad. Let's
and
go
I
back
wa
to
Go
yeah,
ahead. I was gonna say, and I saw Desiree's, interviews several times, the bio mom, and, my heart breaks for her. I mean, she still just can't stop crying about it, and
yeah,
they said, "Do you ever get to, like, a new normal?" And she said, "No." In fact,
yeah.
it makes me mad when people say that.
It's funny because, she seems to me the type where she could have been, like, shy like Kyron, and I think this has made her stronger in a weird way, right? Where I think she has a purpose to fight for,
Mhm.
and, because in this book, it talks about her childhood, and she doesn't refer to her biological mother as a mom. She
Oh,
calls her by her name, and her mom used to go to work and lock her and her brother in a bedroom, and it was
what?
just like a lamp and a mattress, and they would play, like, on the mattress. They would, like, slide it off the bed, so they would have, like, a slide, and then what at one time, the apartment below them caught on fire, and they knew that the mom always locked him in. She just happened to check the door, and it was unlocked, and so they ran outside and, went to get help, and then her mom comes, and she's furious at them because they got out.
Oh my god.
And now she's in trouble and
We should also say, I know when this case first happened, I was a little suspicious of what kind of a mom Desiree was. Well, just to tell everybody, she had sole custody of Kyron, and she went to Canada for, like, a girls' weekend or something, and she had had issues with her kidneys, but she ended up getting a kidney infection, and she ended up going to the doctor while she was there, and the doctor, helped her figure out what was going wrong and going on. So she actually spent a couple months in Canada dealing with this kidney issue, and when she came back, she said, "Okay, Kane, I'm on my way back." Oh, by the way, in that period of time, in those few months that she stayed up there, she had given him full custody, signed it over to him so that he could enroll him in school and whatever, do all that stuff. Well, so then when she got done, she said, "Hey, I'm coming back through town. I want to pick him up." And he said, "Yeah, not so fast."
exactly. So
So,
she had, I believe, lupus, and the medicine she was taking was attacking her kidneys.
oh, okay.
So I think that's what that all happened, and they don't even allow that medicine anymore in the United States.
Well,
So
yeah, I
you're right.
heard
Yeah,
something
so she
about
went up there for the vacation. She came back home, made arrangements, quit her job, was going to take the boys with them, and then they wouldn't sign them out of the country. They're like, "We'll just keep the boys," because, you have Kyron and then you have her other son, right?
right.
And so they stayed with their fathers. And like you said, I think she was kind of tricked. And then she basically loses custody at that time. But she had Kyron for the first 2 years. Now let's step back a little bit even further because, um, they got divorced. They separated when she was 8 months pregnant. She
Yes.
went and lived in a different bedroom in the house. But at night, she could hear him bring somebody into the house, which we can assume who it is.
Well, they were dating for several months before the divorce was final, and she and Terry had been friends. Like, they
No,
knew each
she
other.
will tell you in the book they were never friends.
Oh, did they know each other?
He no, he met Desiree, let's say here. So they met in on April 1996 at a gym. So this is pretty common for Kane. He meets his people at a gym.
Yep.
He later sees her at a bar, and then they hang out, whatever. They go to get married. It looks like July 15th of 2000. She got cold feet. She was ready to run out the door, and his mom stops him and is like, "You have to get married." Like, she was literally running for the stairs, and the mom's like, "Nope, you're going." The mother-in-law's name is Chris, and she
Wait,
stopped her and
with
yeah,
Desiree or with Terry?
with Desiree. Oh, sorry.
He
Yeah,
met
no, with
Desiree at a gym too?
yes, this is very
What?
common for him. Right. So then in January 2002, 2 years after they were married, or I guess a year and a half, she finds out that she's pregnant. And he doesn't want anything to do with the baby. He doesn't want a baby. That was not their plan. And so he's like, "I'm going to just give you the rights. I don't want." And so she's devastated because now she's pregnant. Her husband doesn't want a baby. That her life is changing. Well, apparently he had gone to his mom, who's the one that kind of seems like, she wanted Desiree to get married to him. And now because she was about to leave, right? And
Mhm.
now Kane's about to ditch this child, and he has a conversation with his mom, and all of a sudden now he's like, "I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be a father."
Yeah,
And
it
then it
seems
was
like
yeah,
he had a wandering eye.
exactly. So just 3 or yeah, 3 months after she finds out she's pregnant, she's almost positive he's having an affair within 3 months, right?
Right.
So let's just say 5 months after she finds out, her be his Kane's one of his really good friends calls her and tells her, it's confirmed, he is having an affair with you. She finds in his briefcase a letter that Terry has written to him. And it is basically says, "Kane, to survive this, you must trust me." And there's all these different things. Contact an attorney, transfer all unnecessary money to an account with only your parents' name on it. Take her name off all of stock markets, IRAs, 401ks. This includes benefits as well. And put your account info, bank MMs, whatever that is, IRAs, etc., and
Money
paperwork with your
market.
driver's license. Yeah, maybe into a safety deposit box. She wrote this whole list of things like and it says, "Have lots of sex with me." Gross. And then, unless you're 125% sure that this child is yours, have a DNA test.
Oh,
Make sure you document everything. I mean, she wrote out for him what he needed to do. This is the kind of sick person. Okay, given he's not also very stellar either
right.
because, he's messing around with this crazy woman because don't you think about it like when if you started dating somebody who could give you this list, how nasty is this person going to be later to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. What goes around comes around is always my phrase.
Yeah. Okay, and let's just mention while Desiree is down the hall in her own little bedroom and she can hear, activity in the rest of the house. Oh, guess what? She gets an STD. Pregnant Desiree gets an STD. Well, guess what? She's already been having trouble with her kidneys. Now she's in and out with pre-labor, in and out of the hospital because of this.
No, I
Oh,
did not
and
know.
this is even fun. This is so much fun. I mean, this is just tells
Oh,
you how what a great person, Desiree or not Desiree, Terry was. Is Kyron was born September 9th, 2002. So she is actually giving birth. Like she's in labor. Well, she's not giving birth at this moment. She's in labor and somebody cracks open her door and her head pops out and guess who it is?
Terry?
She's looking for Kane
What? At the hospital?
at the hospital while Desiree was in labor.
No.
Yeah. Yes, sir. She was looking for Kane. Then later that day, little Kyron was born. Adorable little Kyron. And then it looks like on December of '02, Desiree moves out of the house and she takes Kyron with her. Well, interesting thing is, as she's leaving with all her stuff, she looks over and there is a moving van parked on the side of the road. And guess who's moving in the same day?
Terry.
Moved in the same day that Desiree moves out.
How long was Terry and uh Kane married?
So they didn't get married until 2005. But this is all from 2002. So they dated the 3 years before they
Okay,
got
and he
married.
went missing in 2010.
And yes.
Okay, so they were married 5 years.
Yes, and they didn't have him for the first 2 years. But okay, but
Oh,
they were they she lived with him since 2002, right?
yeah.
So even though so that's 8 years. The first 2 years of oh my god, this is so sad too. So the first 2 years she had them. She still Terry was still with Kyron for 6 or 5. Let's go back to Desiree just a little bit. In February of 2003, her friend and her Sherry, they go out to Gearhart for the weekend, and against Sherry's, what Sherry wanted for her, Desiree was done. She just threw her wedding rings into the ocean, into the Pacific Ocean, and I mean, it's weird now that we've talked about like the ocean
Mhm,
and that area.
mhm.
Like I have this little it's the ocean. It's so final out there, and it just because we've had other cases out there, it just seems so um surreal. I think when I think of the ocean now, a little
Right.
bit. And then let's see. Okay, so then in August 2004 is when she goes to visit her friend. Oh, hold on. I hope I got that. In August of 2004 is when she goes to visit her friend up in Canada. And then that's when she gets that kidney infection. And then that's when the doctor was like, let's figure out what's happening versus just treating it. And then she came home, sold all her stuff, went up there for 2 months, dropped the boys. She was actually going to take them, dropped them off at the ex's houses, and goes up to Canada. Comes back in debt because of the all the
Yeah,
medical bills and the legal bills for that. And I think a lot of us, like I thought in the beginning, like what mother doesn't take her kids?
yeah.
She fought for them for 2 years.
Wow.
So she had them for 2 years. She fought for another two, and then she's just strapped. She has no money. Like, how do you do that, right?
Well, and I think she was
Um,
working at a bank in Medford.
yes, she was a bank manager, and that's how she met her husband Tony. Was because he was in the forensics department
Mhm.
of that of banking, I guess. And so I think that's how they had actually met.
Yeah, I
And
heard
they
that
met
too.
and married in 2009, so the year before. And
Mhm.
Tony actually sounds like a really great guy. Just like a man's man, hangs out. He just seems like a normal person.
And
You know,
Kyron really liked him. Kyron
he
wanted to be a
did.
detective and yeah.
Yeah, I think they had, lots of things that they liked to do. And I think Kane, the times that they spent, he probably also did. He had like the fishing pool at home. And here's
Mhm.
the other thing. You know, the whole ruckus is happening at the school and they're there all night long. It's like she said when they pulled up, it was like she goes, all the lights, it was like an opening to a furniture store. There was so
Mhm.
many lights or like a movie premiere, right?
Mhm.
And she's not tired, she's not hungry. She's just like, where's my son? And she's super upset, doesn't understand what had happened. And then that night, I think they had to go to Kane's house, and they stayed at Kane's house. It was
Mhm.
really awkward. I think everyone's super upset except Terry. Terry is playing hostess, and I guess, at some point it is your house, but you're offering drinks and food to people and, trying to like keep it light, but you also still have a stepson missing. So I think that was super interesting to a lot of people who are looking
Mhm.
at her and wondering what the heck is happening.
For sure.
The one thing I do want to mention is on their drive up from Medford, Tony, the stepdad, he is an investigator. He's currently working at the bank, I think, doing forensics with the computers or something. But in the past, he had covered a case. And in that case, and let me go back to the page on this one because this was super interesting. And you know how you get that gut feeling? It sounded like he had one. On the way up, he says all he could keep saying in his head was 70 feet and 70 feet. And what that meant to him was 70 feet was his distance from Billy Simmons' trailer to a patch of field in Southern Oregon where Kaylin Glacier's body was found in 2008. She was 15 years old when she went missing in 1996. And what he means by that, and it says on here, um, it is. to remind them that in a missing persons case, areas must be searched multiple times and then searched again because they had covered that area and they covered it again and they covered it again. And then they finally found her, but she was only 70 feet from where they were looking. So as he's going up, like he knows that area is so dense with like blackberry bushes and trees and all of this stuff. You could literally just walk right over it and not even know it.
Well, that's what everybody said. It could be 3 feet away from you, and wouldn't be
And you
able to
can
find
see
it.
it. And
Yeah.
especially if she or somebody buried him, it's gonna be much harder because now you've got 10 years of leaves and brush that have grown and ugh. Anyway,
Ugh. Well,
so where did I leave off? So we are at the house. She's acting really weird. Anytime uh Desiree goes somewhere, Terry's kind of following her, like going downstairs with her and going, I think she's just kind of trying to feel her out. What's her reaction like? What's going on? Terry's also very surprised that Desiree drove up. Oh, you're coming, she says. Like, of course I'm coming. Like, my son's missing. Of course I'm coming. The other weird thing about the house is none of them, because it's so rural out
yeah.
there,
Yeah.
they didn't have any window coverings on any of the windows in any part of the
Really?
house. Yeah, it was weird. That was kind of strange. And so the detectives were tired of holding like a towel up in the bathroom window so they could go to the bathroom. That the detectives went to Home Depot and bought window coverings for them. Besides the fact people were kind of roaming around and, hanging out and they hadn't put up the trespassing signs yet. So I think there were people in and out, news media and everything, and they could just see right inside the house because they had no window coverings. They went and covered them up, right? Oh, here's another thing. They put a wire on Kane to see if she would or if anybody would say anything. And at one point, Terry sees it on his neck. And she's like, "What is that? Are you taping me?" And so now she's all suspicious. And he didn't know what was going on. He's like, they just said do this and he's like, "All right." So she found it, right?
And they did it pretty immediately,
They
like,
did.
within days after she
Yeah.
went missing. They suspected her pretty much from the word go.
Right. So then she wants to go put up no trespassing signs at the end of the driveway, and she wants Tony to go with her. And she kind of wants Tony to himself. And so as they're walking, she's kind of flirting. She's telling him about how her back kind of hurts and blah, blah. And she runs her finger up and down his back and she's checking for a wire.
What?
That's what he claims. He was like, either she's being all touchy friendly or she was looking for the wire because that's where Kane's was on his back. She runs her finger up. And
Oh
if I
my
think of my friend who reminds me of her, she would do that to my husband,
really?
but just because she liked him, not because she yeah. Um,
Let's not
all
call
right.
her a friend anymore.
No, you're right. They start digging through some information. They actually go and get everybody's phones and they download all the information. And Tony at this point says, "Our lives are now public. Like there's no secrets anymore." And Terry was kind of upset about that because she didn't want to give up all her stuff, right?
Well, she was sexting already with some other guy within, like, 2
Not
weeks.
quite yet. It
Okay.
was coming, but not quite yet. So she does invite a friend over, and I'm trying to go back to her name. I believe it's Alice, which is little Ellie's mom, offered to bring some food over. Remember, Ellie was
Mhm.
the other picture and down there. So Alice brings some food over, and she's like, "Hey, I want to talk to you downstairs." And so they go down to the basement, and she's like, "I need you to tell the police that Kyron had a doctor's appointment." And she's like, "I know nothing about that. I'm not going to say that. I don't know anything about that." And so she's like, "Oh, no big deal. I was going to have him checked out because he was having seizures." And she's like, I don't know anything about seizures. So as they're walking back up the stairs, she goes, "Yeah, that doctor's appointment that he was going to," like as if they were just talking about that
Oh,
downstairs so that everybody else can hear that they were having this conversation. And then now they can be like, "Well, we were talking about it, but I knew nothing about it." What she says she did is she dropped him off at school. She says she went to Fred Meyer's, which is close to where they were somewhat. And then they didn't have what she needed, so she went to a different Fred Meyer's. And then she claims that she went to the gym Is that right? And then she went, home and posted the picture and waited for Kane. Well, then, they were like, "Huh, that's interesting," because we see the surveillance video showing that you left Fred Meyer's at 9:12, and which, by the way, she parks really, really far out, and so far you can't really see with the video cameras inside the truck. It is away
Hmm.
from everything, and they said it wasn't necessarily because of door dings, it was because that's what Kane does, and she was just used to parking out like that. And then when the Kane was asked about that, he just like, whatever. Like, no, I didn't do that. Kind of, it sounded like he scoffed, is what they said in the book. And so she parks far away. She goes to another Fred Meyer's, and I think she gets Motrin and then a couple of other items. And in the video, it's just her and Kitty. They can also see Kitty in the car seat in the back of the truck as it was leaving, but they couldn't because of the truck and the angle or whatever. They couldn't see if there was anything else in the truck. Then she goes to the gym. Well, she doesn't check into the gym, and this is where it gets kind of weird too. The timeline is all off. She says one time, the gym says a totally different time.
My favorite part is that
Yeah.
the little girl is not feeling well, so she's sick
Yeah.
with something, and she's taking her to the gym, daycare. I just love that parent.
Yeah. So I worked at the daycare at the gym, and I know that people do that.
I
So I'm like,
know.
yeah. I also believe that people drive around forever too and try to get
Yeah.
their babies to sleep. Um, but I do have to say the detectives never did find the Motrin that she bought at the store, and they never found anything else that was on that receipt. She
Really?
would just say, "Oh, it's around here somewhere," and then, but never, according to the book, it was never. They could never find it.
What else
So
did she get? Didn't she get some sort of Benadryl or something?
yeah, it didn't say exactly. The only thing I could see was Motrin and a couple of other items is what it said, but it didn't sound like they recovered any of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause my question
I was
was, did she put him to sleep? Because that was always the
yeah.
question, like, did she put him to sleep? And
Well, I have another theory on that. So Terry says that she was at the gym at 11:39. According to the gym, she didn't get there till 12:20 and left at 12:20 or left at 12:42. So she was there 22 minutes.
I believe
Now
the
in
gym.
Y no, totally, and not only that, people saw her there. She showed them the pictures of of the thing. Like, she was one of those people, let me just tell you, she took a lot of pictures of them because, Desiree had Kyron every other weekend, and they would put a flash drive in his backpack, and then Desiree would upload him into her computer, and then she would do the same thing for Terry. They sounded
Really?
like they had this little thing going, and so she took a lot of pictures. However, somebody who takes a lot of pictures, are you gonna show them that one picture from that morning? That
Right.
seems a little odd, especially when these people are like, "I barely even ever talked to her before." Not to mention, somebody at the gym said they saw a big gash in her leg, and she talked about it a little bit. Well, when she was asked what had happened, she said she got it at the gym. She dropped a weight on it. But as you know, weights are like round or they're not,
Yeah.
there's no like jagged. They said this was like a gash in her leg. A weight, even if it dropped on your leg, it would break your leg or it bruise your leg, but it's not going to cut it a deep hole into it and or a deep gash into her leg. And, she doesn't happen to mention the gash to anybody except the gym. She mentions it, probably because she might have been wearing shorts or something, but somebody
Mhm.
saw it and but never really mentions it, and then they find it. They're like, "Hey, how'd you get that?" And then she's like, "Oh, I was at the gym and I got that." But she didn't come out and say, you know, the funny thing is, they were asking her, "Where were you for 2 hours?" Well,
Yeah.
then she's like, "Oh, well, I did stop at that Michael's, that craft store. Oh, and I did go to the dry cleaners. Oh, but there was such a long line, I didn't go in. And then I left. Then I drove around, and then I went to the gym, and then I went home." And that's all fine, but there's no receipt from Michael's, there's no video of her at Michael's, there's not video of her at the dry cleaners, and when they called the dry cleaners, they're like, "It wasn't even that busy today. We didn't even have a line today." No, it didn't add up at all.
Didn't she also say that she just drove around trying to put the little girl to sleep
She
originally?
did. Yeah, and that we know that she did that because her cell phone pings. And, like, I actually have a map of all the area that she drove. It's like this big circle, and, maybe when you don't work, you can go to 2 different Fred Meyers because the 9 grocery stores in between each Fred Meyers probably doesn't have Motrin
Yeah,
either, right?
exactly.
Like, okay.
Well, and I
So
know she went to the Fred Meyer over on Cornelius Pass. Was that the first Fred Meyer she went to? Because that
yes, it is, and then she went to the one on Cedar Hills
is that the
or Cedar
closest one?
Mills.
Because I would think Cedar Hills or Cedar Mills was the closest one.
Well, she lived right off of Cornelius Pass Road.
Oh, okay.
So I
Okay.
think she just went up and over, went to that one. Then supposedly, like, there different variations of Motrin. You don't have to buy the Motrin brand.
Right.
Maybe
They're
she did.
generic.
Yeah, and it's August. I mean, it's June. Like, are they really gonna be out? Like, no one's sick right now. Anyway, so she has to drive all the way to another one.
Did they
And
check to
then,
see if they were out of Motrin?
I think they did. And the store wasn't able to validate, or is that the right word? To
Yeah,
confirm that they
sure.
were out.
We should
But
also say that she took 2 lie detector tests, and both of them were inconclusive, and she says it's because she couldn't hear. She's deaf in one
okay,
ear or something.
let's just say she failed the first one. She walked out of the second one and she failed the third one. She was not going to do the third one at all. And then when Desiree says something to her, the fact is when the media finds out that you didn't do this, that's going to look really bad. And so she went in and did it again and failed. But she was really upset with the third one because she really wanted this other officer to do it because the one that was going to be doing it to her is very strict and very direct.
Mhm.
And the other one that she was more comfortable with, I think his name was Will, she had like a little flirty thing with him.
Of course she did.
Yeah. So she may say it's inconclusive, but according to the book and everything else I read, she did not pass the first and third, and she walked out of the second.
Okay, so here's a question. I remember, and I didn't see this today, but I remember watching Dr. Phil way back when this happened. Didn't Dr. Phil offer to give her another one and she said she would, but then she never did it? Is that a total lie?
Yeah. She claims, even on that Dr. Phil show, because I watched that too, is she claimed that she was told by the police not to say anything, to not get
Yes.
involved.
Yes.
And, when you look at her, like, and I think I've told you this before, I really like micro expressions because you can get your answers from people
Right.
before they even say it out of their mouth. Like, I've been known to do this where people will ask you to do something. "Hey, you wanna come to my party?" And you're like, "Yeah," and you really don't wanna do it.
Right.
But your face will say no, but you are saying yes. Well, there's a question when he asks her very specifically, "Do you know where he is?" And she says no, but she is nodding her head yes.
Oh yeah, you told me about that. I did not see
Yeah.
that today
I
because I
even kept that clip because I was like, she's saying her body is saying yes, but her voice is very much saying no. On day 3, she gets all glammed up. She does her hair, she does her makeup, she does all of this stuff, and everybody else is like not even showered for days. They're wearing the same clothes for the last, 72 hours. And she's like all ready. And she's going to go to Fred Meyer's. I don't know why she likes Fred Meyer's so much. And her friend Alice is like, "Don't you want to wear a hat?" And she's like, "No, I actually want people to recognize me." Oh, let's talk about the phone pings. This is what we were saying that we knew that where she was. If you follow the phone pings, at one point it pings at Sophie's Island. So, and I may have this wrong, but in 2010, I believe at that in that area at that time were 2 cell phone towers. And when you get to a certain area, it automatically jumps to the other one.
Mhm.
But they were saying they were able to reduce it down to within a mile of that cell phone tower. But that's still a very big area because it goes Highway 30, it goes up to his street. It goes over Sylvie's Island. And if you know where Sylvie's Island are, if you're not from this area at all, it's right where the Willamette River connects to the Columbia River, and the Columbia River goes to the ocean.
Mhm.
And this is where the ships come in to port. They
Mhm.
would come up the Columbia, they go up the Willamette River, and they port in Portland. So, Sylvia's Island is like right there, and her phone was pinging on that. but the bridge going over has a video camera, and the video camera never shows the car going over there. But it is pinging over there. So their search efforts start at Sophie's Island. Now, I want to point out too is remember Casey Anthony?
Yes.
And she was in jail. And remember Mr. Padilla? That I don't remember what he was. I think he was a bondsman. He was looking in some lake for Kaylee.
Okay.
And Casey Anthony comes out of her jail room or whatever, and she's looking at the video, and she's like, "Huh." Turns around like no big deal and walks off. And I knew right then and there she
She
wasn't in there
Yeah.
because of her reaction. But when they showed the video of them at the pet cemetery down the street from her house, she's having a panic attack. She's freaking out. So I don't think Terry was actually ever reacting because they weren't close.
I agree with you, and when I watch Dr. Phil, we talk about the gut every time and the micro expressions.
Yeah.
When, he mentioned, Highway 30 and Sophie's Island, she said, "I was never at Sophie's," or maybe this was an interview with somebody else, actually, I
No,
don't
that's
even
right. No, that's right, because I felt the same way because she was so like, she didn't
adamant.
hesitate. She was like, "I was not there," and I
Yeah,
believe her when she said that. The one thing I believe about her,
exactly. She said, "I was
which
never
she's
there."
such a good liar though, like, that if she right. She can't keep any of her other stories straight, but she can remember she wasn't on Sylvia's Island. But
Correct.
she says it so, like, in a way that I was like, "He's not on there."
Yep.
But
No.
I wonder, had she been shown an area that he was at, would she freak out? Like, I also believe she got that gash when she did something to
Yeah,
him.
for sure,
If she was guilty, let's just say,
for sure.
right? If she was
Yes.
actually guilty, I'm guessing you would get a gash in your leg when you're burying a body. Or I don't wanna say that, that's terrible, but, honestly, where is he then? Um,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah, and, she posted on Facebook that she ordered new flyers when it was actually Lithia Motors where Desiree worked, bought the new flyers, but she was trying to get all the credit for a lot of things. Um,
She's definitely a credit seeker.
she is.
Yeah.
And, so the funny thing that it was not funny, it's interesting how Desiree says something like, "Hey, I can remember what I ate that day." She
Yeah.
can't remember where she drove to.
Yep.
She can't remember what she did that day, like and also on Dr. Phil, she was like, "Oh, it's kind of fuzzy. I don't really remember. It was, so long ago." You're telling me you don't remember that day? It is
Mhm.
really hard to remember your lies. But
Mhm.
you remember the truth, and especially a day like that, you are not gonna forget anything.
Correct. You've went over that day so many times in your head. You've gone over every decision you made, every moment that happened in the school, all of that. You cannot tell me that you're not completely obsessed with that day and it's not completely in the forefront of your mind.
Well, unless you're lying about it
Yeah,
and you keep
exactly.
changing your story.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and this is super sad. Tony, after 16 days of being in Portland, and they're from Medford, he's like, "We need to go home for a weekend. You need to get away from this. We just need to get new clothes. We need to check on the dogs that are at the neighbor's house." And he's like, "Just come home for a weekend." And she's like, "Okay, I'll come home for a weekend." She gets in her own car and she looks in the back and she can see Kyron's handprint on the glass. And she keeps it there until the one day she sells the car. That's so sad.
Oh.
Yeah. She said it stayed there forever until, they sold the car. And then she also found a bottled water that was in the refrigerator that Kyron had drank out of just the weekend before, or, week. He was there May 21st, 23rd, because he was there every other weekend. So she's like, "Tony, don't ever touch this bottle of water." She stuck it way back in the back of the refrigerator and she probably still has it. I don't know. But oh, here's another
Mm.
really, really sick thing I had to tell you. When I think she had a friend drive up from Medford to come hang out with her during this whole thing, and they were staying at Kane's house. And they go into Kyron's room and they're just kind of hanging out. And Terry must have been gone because Terry was always following behind, and she also didn't want them in their stuff. And he had some like laundry on the bed and his toys. And she looks over, and there is a picture of Kyron, who's only a couple days old, with Terry. So she was trying to remember back. She wanted to spend some time with her older son, after the baby was born. So she asked Kane, "Hey, can you take the baby for like an hour or two?" He takes it straight to his girlfriend's house. So there's a picture of the newborn baby with Terry in their bedroom with with Kyron's bedroom. And you see that for the first time, you're like, "Oh, that's nice. While I was married to you and pregnant, you're taking our brand new baby, and then I had a baby, and then you take a picture with your girlfriend?"
Right?
She sounds like she's way more mature than I would ever be.
Oh,
She's a
yeah.
lot nicer than I would ever be, for sure. I mean, who knows how I would actually react in that situation, but um I would be a crazy bitch
Yeah, me too.
if that happened to me. Yeah.
Me
So
too.
she's super more mature than I can't ever say. Anyway,
Well,
gets her
I
home.
think that, she tried to, stay in a level of what do I wanna say, like, faith that
Yeah.
the justice system was gonna take care of this, and what I heard in her voice today in the interviews that I watched that were much more recent, she has really just, like, given up all hope. She just not given up all hope. She has given up on the idea that justice is gonna be served. Like, I could tell that. She didn't say that in those words. I'm kind of taking that from what she said, but I just
Yeah.
felt this utter loss of confidence, and the fact that it has been 10 years and she never ever ever thought that this case would still be open 10 years later. Like, she knows a lot of the things we don't, and
Yeah.
she can't believe that she hasn't been arrested.
Yeah. No, I think she had to play that person because
Yeah,
she wanted everybody to keep talking and she wanted to get answers and she wasn't going to do it freaking out.
correct.
Um,
I totally agree.
she went outside for fresh air. And oh, here it is. This is so sad. This is a quote from the book from Rebecca Morris, Boy Missing. And so she went outside to get some fresh air, and suddenly, silent, a small whirlwind picked up the leaves and twigs at her feet, and I felt a presence. It wasn't a vision of God or Chiron, but I felt that we were both with me. I felt Chiron put his hand in mine, and he said, "I'm okay. It's going to be okay, Mama. There is a God, and He does exist, and I'm with Him. And I'm happy, and I'm playing with my cards, and I'm happy now, Mama. I need answers, and I need to find you," she says. "And that might not happen. I'm with God. Or you're not here anymore?" And he says, "No, I'm in God. I'm with God, and I'm in heaven."
But
So I
here's
know
the
when
other
she
thing.
does those interviews and stuff, she
Yeah,
says that she never talks to him as if he's in past tense. Um, where Terry does. She's like, "I really loved your son on day 2," or even that same night. She says that, "I really did loved him." And she's like, past tense, she automatically like, gets at her about that because she heard it. I heard it. Um, there's a point I wanted to make about something here was Desiree's talking about her son and she says, he loves sushi. He's allergic to bees. He loves the green-eyed frogs. He loves the outdoors. Like he loves to go fishing, but he's not going to put the worm on his own fishing line. Like
right.
he likes bugs, but he's not going to touch them, and she was just talking about like she wore really thick glasses when she was his age and they joke about that they're similar in that way. And so she talks really highly about him. But we haven't even gotten to Dee Dee Spicer yet. And Dee Dee
No.
Spicer lived in Tualatin in a condominium by the Meridian Park Hospital.
Mhm.
But she was really good friends with Terry Horman.
Yes.
And so Dee Dee Spicer was working at a lavender farm. What do you think of when you think of lavender?
Well, I know it's just like a giant field of lavender, right?
Right. So my next door neighbor has a swimming pool and they have this huge lavender bush right next to the pool. So when the kids
Oh,
are
the
around there,
bees.
I get worried that they're gonna get stung by bees. So last summer, I waited till dark and I dug up that bush and I moved it. I moved it to a different part of the
Oh
gr
my
they didn't
gosh.
care because I that's what I did when I was at while the kids were swimming in their pool, I would just clean up their yard for them because they weren't home. They would be gone for the whole summer. So I moved this bush so that when the kids are playing, they're not gonna get stung by bees. Well, Dee Dee Spicer works at a lavender field and Kyron Horman's allergic to bees.
Right.
Could this be linked at all? I don't know because honestly, physically, I'm like, how does somebody murder a child? Like, are you strangling them? Are you giving them Motrin? Like, what are you doing? How do you do
Right.
that to somebody? But could you get them stung by bees? And then you didn't really do it. You just didn't save them.
Well, it's possible. And Dee Dee Spicer, I mean, we I mean, just we're just getting into her, but she's like the best friend, right? She works at this nursery and she can't be found that day at work. And then
Yeah,
2 days later, like after this whole thing's starting to go on, she buys a burner phone.
she does. Well, and part of her reasoning okay, yeah, so let's go into that a little bit. She's unaccounted for an hour and a half from working on this in this farm. They were getting
During
the
the
farm
same time that Terry
yes.
Horman is unaccounted for.
Is running around
Yeah,
in the same area, right?
right.
So, it's very interesting. She works at this lavender farm, and, it sounds like there's a big event the next day. So, they have a bunch of people out there trying to get it ready for this big group that's coming in, or maybe it's just opened for visitors. And they all the staff always eats lunch together. Well, DZ's not around. They're calling her. Her car is still there, but her phone is in the car, but Dee Dee's nowhere to be found. Well,
Mhm.
it just happens to be the same time Terry is driving around.
Actually,
Now
she
they
says her phone was in the car, but nobody has confirmation of that.
okay.
She
Well, I
said
don't know if you saw it pinging or anything. There's nothing like that. We would have heard that, don't you think?
well, I don't know. What I read or heard was that she said that she didn't bring her phone because it was raining, and so why would she wanna get it all wet?
Yeah, and she's no I guess people describe her as being very gullible and like she had many jobs. She was just kind of one of those people that was like all over the place. Probably like me. I had many jobs and he just worked and if you're gullible uh, she's so adamant though that she did not go with her. What do you think about that? Did she go with her?
She did something, I think. I don't know that she had the wherewithal to do that. I think if she did,
I don't think she knew she did it.
she
If she
would
did,
yes.
right?
I think she knows something, but I don't think she did it. I don't think that Dee Dee Spicer did anything. I think she just knows something because she lawyered up too. She
Well,
was
how did they find the burner phones? Because if she didn't bring out that information on her own, why would she bring out the information that she went in a car? Like,
I don't know,
it,
they always find burner phones, like, I don't know.
well, and part of I think what I was read at some point, or maybe it was one of Terry's stories, was the reception at the house isn't really great. Oh, but Dee Dee said, this is what I did read this, and I don't remember if it was from that show. They did buy the burner phones because they can't be traced. She actually said that.
Yeah, she did, and she said she was
Yeah.
gonna her phone could be traced and or not traced, tapped during the
Yes.
investigation.
So she decided to get the burner phones.
Yes.
So she's missing during the time. They all eat together. She mysteriously shows up at 1 o'clock. But as we know, Terry was at the gym 12:20 to 12:42.
Right.
So how did that work out? Like, I think if she would have picked her up by like 10, she could have had her back at 12:40 or 12:30 and got to the gym in time.
And do you really think Dee Dee helped with this and hasn't said anything by now?
Well, where was she then?
I
Could
know.
she have been on the farm just like she said and nobody just knew where she was? It's possible.
It's an I know, it's a really big coincidence though, isn't it?
It's just kind of weird that it literally was right down the street from the school. Terry does refer to the show Dexter at one point. Later, Desiree heard Terry had told a friend something she'd learned from an episode of the show. Leaving a body in water, a river or lake, maybe, was the best way to hide it.
Well, I know that's where they why they looked at Sovie's Island too.
Yeah. And
They were living in the
maybe
water.
they remember that quote, and that's why they headed out there.
Oh,
The
okay.
one thing that, they were having a difficult time with the search dogs was there was no scent because everything that was brought home, including the backpack and the jacket, everything had been washed, so
Wow.
there was no scent they could find of
Yeah,
Kyron's.
and that was the question, why did she wash all of his stuff when he was missing, and why would you throw that in the wash?
We know why she did it, but we don't know why somebody who's innocent would do that.
Yes, I know.
I mean, is her house that clean? It sounded like the front yard had this huge mud hole in it that the the police actually brought in either sawdust or some sort of rocks in there so that they wouldn't track out all this mud. It doesn't sound like this big, beautiful home. It just sounded like a regular, modest home. But is it that clean inside?
Well, here's my thing from being in a lot of people's houses is that for the most part, when you live in those rural areas, you just do have a lot of dust coming into the house. So you tend to have, and I don't want to say messy, just you have a lot of gravel out there. You have a lot of dust. You have a lot of dirt. You're constantly working in the yard, unless everything's just pristinely manicured around you. And I know from experience that that is typical.
To have it clean, super clean?
No, to not.
Yeah. Well, to have everything clean, I know that Kyron had issues with wetting the bed, and they were saying because, I don't know, stress or something.
Okay, so that goes back to my issue with her saying that was he being sexually abused? Was he being sexually abused? And I hate to like throw people under the bus on here, but this the other son, the stepson that went
Okay,
and
so that was one of my points too. Like, I know that she said that she saw Kyron do something, but no kid would naturally know how to do anything. They
no,
don't know
not
that
unless
stuff
they're being
unless they were taught that. So
correct.
is that why he left, or were we just speculating? Maybe we won't ever know that information.
I'm
Um,
totally speculating. I will be the first to admit I would hate to like say anything malice about some young person, right? Because this boy
yeah.
was what, 16 at the time. But that's the big question for me. Like, why was this boy sent away? What happened?
Well, there could have been lots of reasons why he was peeing in the bed, and it doesn't have to be that he was actually being molested. He could have had diabetes, and they hadn't caught it yet.
He could have
And
been being abused by Terry. She could have been being mean to him. I mean, there's a
oh, I
whole
think
lot.
she was very strict. If he didn't get the color coded card that she wanted, which was only put together for her own son, then she wanted Kane to discipline him. And I don't know. The whole
Yeah.
thing is a mess. I know that at one point when they were all coming back from, I think, from something, they were all in the car together, and Desiree was staring at the window, and Terry looks at her and says, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm just looking for Kyron." And she's like, "You'll never find him that way." Terry hires a very expensive Stephen Howes $350,000 retainer.
So that was my other question that I had is how did she afford that? Did her parents like leverage their house?
I think they did. I think so she's adopted. She's an only child. They were just school teachers in Medford.
Yeah.
I think that maybe they saved their money. I have no idea, but um she somehow got that. I mean, I don't know. Kane asked Desiree at some point if she would take Kayla. And at first she thought it was just temporarily, like it would be great to have her. You know, the boys loved her. She's thinking when Kyron gets home, we can all be together. And he's like, "So I just want you to know though, Terry would be able to get visitation rights with her." And she's like, "Listen, the only way I will let her have any visitation rights is if she tells me where Kyron is." And then, but she also kept telling Kane, "I really you need to think about this. Really think really good at this about what you're saying right now." And she said, he decided, no, I can't tell that to Terry, or for whatever reason, he
Wait,
backed down on that.
he wanted Desiree to adopt The little
to
girl?
take Kayla, yes, and now she regrets encouraging him to be that parent. She's like, "I really wish I would have had her now," but, he, did ask her, at least according to the book, he asked her if she would be willing to do that, and that could have been just one conversation,
Right.
um, and
Wow.
we never even got into the whole sexting. It was, 3 weeks after they were separated is when did we even talk about the murder for hire
No,
yet?
we haven't even touched the murder for
Oh
hire.
my god.
I know.
Yeah, she's totally, like, sexting, which they do talk about on Dr. Phil, and he actually goes into showing pictures and stuff, and it was just really poor taste, and while most people are looking for a missing child, she's out there, showing her stuff
Sexting.
and yeah.
Well, and then we haven't discussed the fact that, like, in 1990, she had a boyfriend that she was on a date with out in the middle, like, out at a park or something, and they're sitting on a park bench, and some
Eating
guy
Chinese food.
okay, somebody comes out
Yeah.
of the bushes and, like, all hooded up and scary looking, and she says, "Oh, he's here for you."
Yeah, and then he files for a restraining order and he gets it.
Yes.
Like, you would have to really show. So then he heard of the story of the guy who was in prison who, either knew or was that person, and so I think they're actually or I don't they probably figured it out by now who that guy actually was who came out of the woodwork. But, yeah, they were eating Chinese food. She was 20, he was 18, um,
But why did she
but
want him killed?
I don't know. Because it sounds like they were having a nice little date eating Chinese food out in the park. Like, why would I don't know.
I feel like we've been all over the place in
We
this
are.
thing because there's so many facets to it, and I it's really hard, as I watched all these shows today and videos and kinda got myself refreshed, there's so much to it. It's really hard to not go off on a tangent and to keep
Yeah.
from the beginning to the end. The beginning to the end is the unfortunate life of this little boy, and
Oh,
and
so
you
sad.
and I sit here and we want to tell everybody about this thing that happened because we all have fallen in love with this little boy. Like, we
Yeah.
knew nothing about him. We didn't know anything, and like you said, now
I
we
actually really like Desiree too.
yeah, I
Like,
do. I had a little trouble with her at the beginning, but I actually feel for her, and as I
well, I
watch
think
through
we
the
all did. We all kind of did because we're like, why? What kind of mom doesn't have her kids?
yes,
Well,
yes,
now we understand, and we understand that she's the only one that we still see fighting for him.
and I feel horrible that I judged her like that, and I think,
Yeah.
you know, you and I appreciate the fact that, when we research these true crime stories and everything, you can't help but kind of get some suspicions or some questions or whatever, and I feel horrible that that was where my mind first went when I heard this, but
Yeah.
as I was listening to her today, I was tearing up and just thinking, I couldn't imagine every day being faced with this. And such a trivial thing. I mean, there's so much going on right now. We could talk about Black Lives Matter, but every day at the beginning of quarantine, I woke up just going, please tell me this is not happening. Like, just tell
Right.
me this is over. Like, tell me this isn't true.
Right.
And it's such a first world problem that I can't leave my big, beautiful house, right?
Yeah.
Like, get a grip with yourself, right? And then you
Well, and
have
with her, it happens every day because there's no closure to it.
yes.
Like,
Yes.
it's like I remember, like, when, let's just say, my mom or my dad died, and you wake up in the middle of the night, and you're just like you finally got to sleep, and then you wake up, and you're like, "Oh god," and you remember it all over again.
Right.
Like, that would be so terrible.
Yeah. And
A
and
and
I
we just need to find him, and I'm like, "Okay, so now Terry has been married."
okay.
And I think, Kane will mention that at this point, like, are you just bashing somebody or is it true? But, like, that he thinks that she had a drinking problem. The regular bus driver that Kyron had
Mhm.
a boy named Carson, Carson's sister, and grandmother all saw Kyron leaving with the stepmom, leaving
Really?
the school. That's in the book. Sorry, we're just bouncing all over the place, but I just found that in my notes. I had to say it out loud before I forgot.
I did not know that.
There were a couple of things that were said and then retracted and then said again, and then they said it, like, um so that was one, and there was one other thing that, they retracted. Let's see, it might be that might have been the bombshell, that they were the car was spotted along the roads before we knew that one too, and then the work truck was actually spotted. So the truck was pulled over on a fire trail, Newberry Road, out in that area. I have to look at the map to see where Newberry Road was, but she says she was claiming that she changed a diaper, and then the police are like, "Where's the diaper?" They searched the cars, um, and they
Well,
didn't
did they
find
search that
anything.
area of Newbury?
I'm sure they did. I'm sure that's probably. I drove out there, and the street that they live on, the road that they live on, if
Yeah.
you go, like, Cornelius Pass Road goes all the way down to Highway 30, and
Mhm.
they live off a side road. There's another street, if you go, like, a block over, it runs parallel to it, and
Mhm.
in between, there's these huge, like, dense wooded areas, and they're almost like these ravines everywhere, and when I drove it, it's called Lodi Road, and, it runs parallel to the one we're talking about, and, goes all the way down to Highway 30, and so imagine, like, 2 lines going straight down, and on the left side is the Lodi Road, and then the one that they live off of. If you go that 1 block over, it's not a block, it's a mile or something. There's certain areas where you can pull off, and you can see all the way almost down the hill and all the way up the hill. And it's like this huge, like, drop off ravine. Like, somebody could just toss somebody down there. And it is so steep that you would probably get a big gash in your leg when you're trying to climb back up. Um, I'm just saying.
Just
And at the
saying.
yeah, but if you go down those streets parallel all the way to the bottom, in between is like a body of water between the 2 streets at the very bottom on Highway 30. And that's a private property though. So I couldn't imagine somebody able to, go into that water. It's hard to
Right.
put a body underwater and have it not resurface. The only thing I'm thinking is if you go to the Columbia, it could go out to the ocean.
Yeah, but don't we remember I remember hearing stories about, like, big buckets or containers that the lavender farm had. That was one of the suspicions, I thought, as I recall.
They okay, and then what, she put them in one of them, and then that's why
Yes,
you don't smell it, like, but
yes.
how do you physically kill a 7-year-old child?
I think you put him to sleep, and then I don't know. That's
How would you get that barrel to stay underwater?
you wait it.
Okay, let's just do the rundown. On Thursday, she takes the project to school. Friday morning, Kane says, "Congratulations, good luck today." They go to school. Stepmom, daughter, stepson go to school. Look at the science projects, take a picture. She says she leaves with the baby. Kyron is not seen ever since then. She goes to Fred Meyer's. She goes driving around for 2 hours, happens to stop at the gym for 22 minutes, then heads home, posts a picture on Facebook at 1:21. Kane's home by 2, 3:45. They go to the bus, and Kyron's not on it. And then they go straight to the school. The police are called. Desiree's called. She's here by 9:18 or something.
In the morning?
And no, that night.
Oh, okay.
I mean, she
Okay,
was gonna
so
come
I
that
always
way. Yeah.
wondered what the deal was with Kane and why he didn't go to the science fair.
I think he works. He had to be at work. He's an engineer at Intel. I think,
I did
he
hear that
was
he
never an active dad to begin
yeah,
with. He didn't even want kids.
yeah.
And Desiree was shocked when she found out that, Terry was having a daughter because he didn't even want Kyron. And so I think he just goes to work. He does his thing.
But then here's my question, then he insists on naming every child that he has with a K?
Yeah. Kermit.
Yeah,
Good thing
Kermit?
she put squash on that one.
Yeah, I heard that.
Um, yeah, like Michael wasn't always, at all the school functions. I did a lot of that stuff. you know? If it was after hours, he would go, but not like, it's first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
Not everybody is like Eric, Melissa.
Not everybody is like Eric, I'll tell him that.
And, like, he probably that was just her job. She didn't work, that was probably her
Well,
thing. That
but I
was,
kind of I kind of don't like that when I see that out of parents when it's especially a stepchild. Like,
Yeah.
why are you making it your wife's job, your new wife's job? And I understand she says that he's her
She
son.
signed up for it. She knew all along that his wife was pregnant when they were dating. Like, and you have to like think of, he's not a great picker when it comes to her,
I
right? Like he
agree.
just didn't. I think she was, you know, he was weak, she was manipulative, she won him over, then she already signed up for that because she was already pregnant. There was nothing they could do about that. So she was ready. She loved kids. She wanted to be a teacher. She was ready for that. Like if if it meant that she won him and it was a child involved, she didn't care. She just was glad that she won.
Yeah. I think you're right
He
about
picked her over his own wife. She was happy about that.
Yeah, she was. You're right. And I'm sure she did all she could to convince him how she was just gonna take care of everything.
I think she felt like she knew she was losing him. Then she's resentful that her son's sent away to go live with her parents. She gets in a fight with him the night before, and all of this stuff is like brewing. And then either somebody took him or she just looks really bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Either she got really, really lucky or somebody else did too.
Yeah. Who told us that this would be solved in 3 years? Was it you?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you did say that. I think you
I
told me that.
think I said 3 years, but I don't know what that meant. I said it.
But
Um,
that was just recently, so, like, we're starting didn't we say it was 2023?
maybe.
I think you said that this year.
And so this is what Desiree says in the book. I believe that Terry Harmon knows where Kyron is. I believe that Terry Harmon is responsible where my son is. She just said that. I think she sedated him with Kate. That was the other thing I wanted to know. And we'll talk about this in a second.
Mhm.
While Kitty with Kitty's medicine and took him somewhere. I think she thought it wouldn't be a big deal. Kyron's disappearance would have blown over. Or she wanted to kill Kane, give Kyron to me, and get Kane's life insurance with Katie, sorry. No matter the outcome, no matter what Terry did that day, we still have to find Kyron. We need to get the answers and we still need to hold her accountable. I wait for the phone call every day to tell me he's coming home. I've begged detectives to notify me first so I can get to Portland. I hope I'm wrong. But I fear that he is gone forever. I know families who have been waiting 30 years for justice. And that's not going to be our family. There's just not going to we are they're not going to prosecute Terry until they find Kyron because they only get one chance. You
I
can't do it
know,
again.
and it's a
Yeah.
no-body case.
And they talk about that in the book too, and how difficult those are. So that the 70 yards,
Yeah.
it was a nobody case, and then they finally found her.
Ugh.
So
Well, and the fact of the matter is, which I was gonna say to you when you were telling me that, is
yeah,
that typically they are close to home, and typically it's somebody close to close to them. So the fact that everybody suspects Terry
yeah,
and, it it's sad if she's being prosecuted in our minds before she's even, brought to justice and all that if she really didn't do this, but, um, there's a lot of points of things that she did really horribly, from the murder for hire twice, to having the affairs and to emailing that she didn't like Kyron because that's
yeah,
something that we haven't even mentioned, but that she
yeah.
those emails, which she denies saying on Dr. Phil, by the way, but, there's just
But
so
they
many.
have them. That's what the weird part
Yeah.
too. And even the night before or the early that morning after the fight,
Yeah.
She emails a friend
Yeah.
saying how much she despises him, and
Yeah. There's just so much to this case that points to her. Um, you
and
know
honestly, I don't think it was even Kyron. I think she didn't like Kane anymore
Yeah.
and was taking it out on the little boy.
Well, I heard at the very beginning, and nowhere in today's stuff did I hear this, but I did hear he was kind of a hyper little boy, but he was
He's
also
7. He's a boy.
Yeah.
Remember how Jacob was?
Yeah, but I totally agree. My son was very, energetic, spirited, as they call them, but, she had a boy, so she
Yeah.
had Quinn. Was he not like that?
Okay, it's also not hers.
Yes,
It's different. I don't care what people say when it
I
comes to
agree.
stepchildren. I think it is different, and I always tell my friends, like when, they're, getting divorced or they're divorced, I'm like, "Nobody will love your kids the way you and your husband love your kids."
You and I have said that so many times to each other over the
Yeah.
years. That is absolutely true, and if you think that you're gonna bring in a replacement dad, you are just wrong. Get
I'm
your
sure my kids annoy the shit out of people where other people's kids annoy the shit out of me,
I'm sure that is true.
right? Like, I
Yeah,
can handle my craziness. I don't
yeah.
wanna deal with somebody else's.
Well, and I think I've always thought that it's because I, in some ways, made that craziness. Like, my kids do make me crazy sometimes, but I also go, "Well, it's probably, partly having to do with me. Somehow I did that, or somehow I contributed to that, or, something."
Yeah.
So I take
Well, they're
some
all parts
ownership.
of us, like, they grew up with us, so that's just, I just have a feeling that how can you take all your frustration out on a little boy?
Yeah.
I think it had to do with the whole situation and not just him, and I think maybe she thought if Kyron was gone that they would have their own little family.
Why didn't she manipulate the whole situation into getting Desiree, Chiron back? Like, that's my whole thing, and when
She
people
did. It says it in the book. Kane was out on not vacation. He was away for work. She calls Desiree and says, "Do you want Kyron? You should take Kyron." He gets wind of it and he's pissed. No, she can't have him. Yeah.
why didn't she just manipulate him the way she manipulates everything? I mean, the solution is not to take the kid out.
Well, I'm sure that they got in a big fight about her own son. The focus was on like maybe the issue was her own son and not Kyron.
Yeah.
So he had to start with that. And so 6 months before all of this happened, her son gets shipped off. It's also the same time the murder for hire happened.
Mm.
Right after he left is when that happened. And so when Kane hooked up with Terry, they met at the gym, but they met at a restaurant. They met at the restaurant.
Right.
They found each other at the gym. They met at the restaurant. Well, guess what? She meets with the landscaper at a restaurant. I mean, maybe a lot of people eat at restaurants and do that kind of stuff. Maybe people eat every day. I don't know. I just like some of those behaviors Kane always finds his people at the gym. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I was
I
read way too
know.
much into that, but I think she got mad that her son was shipped away and there's still problems and
Well, and I guess why did she get shipped away? I mean, I've heard that, the son was supposed to do the yard work and he didn't, and so she got the landscapers and all this stuff. So I think there was trouble with the boy and Kane, but I don't have
yeah.
any confirmation of that. I'm totally
Yeah.
making that up.
Yeah. No, I have no idea what had happened there and why.
And was there
I don't
something
know.
about the boy not being there when Kyron was there? Like, what happened there?
Yeah.
There's so many more
I think she
questions
just
than
made all that stuff up to cause reason for
could be.
people to like to confusion. Well, and it sounds like Cain has been a man of few words like forever.
Yes, yes.
And he was probably raised in a family like that. We can't say that he doesn't feel. He just doesn't show his emotions like Desiree does.
Yeah,
But as a father, you know that you're also going through this, and it cannot be easy. And so, for at least for Desiree and for Cain to have some closure
yeah,
and have some answers for the little sister, and the half brothers, and then the cousins, and there was a lot of people that are missing this little boy. Terry is manipulative and she likes herself and she is how do you get into somebody's brain like that and to have them tell you all their secrets?
I think you have to be like a lover of hers, right?
Do
And
you think her current husband knows?
I think he has suspicions, don't you? And is she married still again?
She, as far as I know, she's still married, and I can't remember his name, but it said it's something Jose. I actually looked it up on Facebook. Let me see. I found his page, but then I was like, do I push friend request? Does he know? Does he know and he's not going to
He knows.
um is he in danger if it doesn't go well?
Well, yes, that is evident. And how somebody thinks that that kind of girl is something you want to take a chance on, I don't know.
Did he know before all of this?
Probably.
How could he not? She tried to change her name twice and it was denied.
Uh-huh. But now I think she probably could change her name because she's legitimately married. I want to share with you one of my go to pieces of clothing during this stay at home order. I have literally been living 24/7 in shorts or leggings, and of course, my favorite sports bra. I've been wearing this sports bra since it was created, but I wanted to share with our listeners and give you a discount code. I'm so excited. I only wear handful bras, and that's handful.com, because they are so comfortable and easy to wear. They also flatter, not flatten, if you know what I mean. They come in adorable colors and patterns, so you can wear them with anything. Through the summer, I'm always in a handful. My new favorite design of theirs is the double down bra. But I have all the styles and the leggings, and I love their leggings. They're wonderful. So I wanted to share with you, go to handful.com and use the code Salon Sleuths. It's spelled SALONSLEUTHS. You're going to get 25% off any one item on their entire site, including sale items. So I encourage you, check it out. You will literally not be sorry. The adjustable bra, for those of you who may be long torsoed or long or short, whatever, you can adjust it to where you fit. Love them, love them, love them. Get yourself one.